Alexander "Alex" Miller meticulously wiped down the bar, with the same methodical precision he had once used to field strip an M4 carbine in complete darkness. Old habits die hard. Even 5 years after abandoning a life most people didn't know existed. "Another round, Alex," Robert Bobby Davis yelled from the corner booth, holding up his empty beer glass. "Last one, Bobby." "It's already 11 o'clock, Alex replied with an easy smile, the kind that made customers trust him, that made them forget the quiet bar owner had been known by a very different name in very different circles. Miller's Bar and Grill sat on a quiet street in a suburban neighborhood of Phoenix, Arizona. Far from the chaos of his previous life, Alex had built something real here. A legitimate business, a peaceful existence, a marriage to Sophia Grant that seemed perfect on the surface. She worked as a pharmaceutical sales representative, traveled frequently, earned good money. They had been married for 3 years, together for 5. He never told her about his past, not about his 12 years with Ghost Ops, an elite special operations unit that officially didn't exist, not about the missions in places that would never make the news, not about the code name that had made enemy combatants whisper warnings in the dark. Alexander Miller, known as the Ghost, had earned that name through 217 confirmed eliminations. Each a neutralized threat, each necessary, each carrying a weight he would bear forever. At 38, he had retired, with honors no one could speak of, and with medals stored in a box he would never open. "Are you all right, boss?" Brandon Smith, his young bartender, asked, breaking Alex's reverie. "You've been staring at that same glass for 5 minutes." Alex looked down at the whiskey glass in his hand, Sophia's preferred brand. An expensive drink she had left on the bar that morning before her business trip to Las Vegas. "I'll be back tomorrow," she had said. "Quick conference, important clients." "Just thinking," Alex replied, putting the glass down. Something had felt off lately. Sophia's trips had become more frequent. Her phone was always face down. She had changed her password. Small things, subtle things, the kind of operational security changes that set off alarms in a mind trained to detect deception. But Alex had pushed those thoughts away. He had left that life behind. He no longer needed to see threats in every shadow. "Go home, Brandon. I'll close up," Alex said, checking his watch. Almost midnight, as Brandon grabbed his jacket and left, Alex's phone vibrated. A text message from Lucy Miller, his younger sister. "Call me when you get this. Important." Lucy was a trauma surgeon at Phoenix General Hospital, brilliant and dedicated. They had always been very close, especially after their parents died in a car accident 8 years ago. She was his only real family. He was about to dial when his phone exploded with an incoming call. Lucy's name appeared on the screen, but it wasn't her voice he heard. "Mr. Miller, this is Dr. Richard Stone, trauma surgeon at Phoenix General Hospital. Your sister, Lucy, was brought in 40 minutes ago with a critical gunshot wound to the chest. She's in surgery now. You need to come immediately." The world tilted. Alex's training took over. Emotion compartmentalized, mind sharpening to crystal clear focus. Critical condition, but stable. She lost a lot of blood. "Mr. Miller, she was conscious when they brought her in. She kept repeating your name and something about your apartment, about hearing something. The police found her in your driveway." His driveway. Alex lived in the apartment above the bar. "I'm 90 minutes away. Keep me informed." Alex ended the call, his mind already running through scenarios, possibilities, threats, Lucy had been at his apartment. Why? She had her own key, but rarely used it without warning. What had she heard, and who had shot her in his driveway? Alex moved with practiced efficiency, locking up the bar in record time. He went up the stairs to his apartment, all senses on high alert. The door showed no signs of forced entry. Inside, everything looked normal. Too normal. The kind of normality that comes after someone has carefully covered their tracks. He checked the bedroom. Sophia's side of the closet was partially empty. Not everything was gone. That would be too obvious, but key items were missing. Her passport, the jewelry he had given her for their anniversary, the leather bag she called her emergency kit. Alex pulled out his laptop and accessed the security cameras he had installed around the building, a precaution from his former life he had never fully abandoned. He rewound the recordings from that evening. At 8:47 p.m., Lucy's car pulled into the driveway. She got out, walked toward the exterior stairs leading to his apartment, and then stopped at the bottom of them. Her posture shifted. She had heard something. She approached the door, listening intently. At 8:51 p.m., Lucy's face registered surprise, then fear. She backed away quickly, reaching for her phone. Then, muzzle flashes illuminated the darkness. There was no sound on the camera, but Alex counted 4 shots. Lucy fell. 2 figures emerged from the shadows, checked her body briefly, then disappeared into a dark sedan that sped away. Professional, clean, attempted execution. Alex replayed the footage, zooming in on the crucial moment. Just before Lucy recoiled, his apartment door had been slightly ajar. Light spilled out. Voices would have been audible from the stairs. Whose voices were they? Sophia was supposed to be in Las Vegas, but her car, he checked the other camera angles. Her car was parked in the side lot, where she thought the cameras didn't reach. Alex's phone rang again. Dr. Stone. Mr. Miller, your sister is out of surgery. It was very delicate, but she's stable. She's asking for you. She's very insistent. Says she has to tell you something about your wife. I'm on my way, Alex said, his voice cold and controlled. Don't let anyone, except medical staff, near her room. No one. As he grabbed his emergency pack, another habit from his former life that Sophia had always thought was paranoid, Alex felt the familiar sensation of a mission activating in his mind. Analysis, strategy, execution. Someone had tried to kill his sister because she had overheard something in his apartment. Sophia was there when she shouldn't have been, and Lucy had mentioned his wife. The ghost had been retired for 5 years, but Alexander Miller was about to learn that some retirements are never permanent. The drive to Phoenix General Hospital took Alex 83 minutes. 12 minutes faster than the GPS predicted. His mind worked in parallel tracks, one part maintaining careful adherence to traffic laws, the other processing intelligence and formulating scenarios. He made 3 calls during the drive. The first to Charles Charlie Wallace, a former team member who now ran a private security firm. Charlie, I need a protection detail at Phoenix General Hospital's trauma unit. My sister's room. Immediate deployment. Budget is irrelevant. The second, Hector Jones, another former operator who had transitioned to digital security. Hector, I need exhaustive background checks, full surveillance on Sophia Grant, and anyone she's been in contact with for the last 6 months. Everything. The third to Martin Reed, an attorney who handled classified matters for Ghost Ops operators. Martin, hypothetically, if someone attempted to orchestrate a murder for hire, what would be their legal exposure? The three men asked minimal questions. They had worked with the ghost before. They knew when he was operational. Alex arrived at the hospital at 1:47 a.m. Charlie's team was already in position. Two plainclothes contractors flanked Lucy's room. Two more covered the elevator and stairwell. They nodded to Alex as he approached. Inside the ICU room, Lucy lay connected to monitors and IVs, her face pale, but her eyes sharp. A bandage covered her chest where the bullet had been removed. When she saw Alex, her eyes welled up with tears. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I should have called you first." "You should have Lucy too." Alex pulled up a chair, taking her hand gently. "Tell me exactly what happened. Everything." Lucy breathed shakily. "I stopped by your place around 8:30. I wanted to tell you something exciting. I've been offered a position at Phoenix General Hospital, head of their trauma program. I was going to ask you to fly with me next week to see the facilities." Despite everything, Alex felt a surge of pride. "That's incredible, Lucy. I got to your apartment and heard voices inside. The door wasn't quite closed. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but then I heard Sophia say your name, and something in her tone made me pause." Lucy's grip tightened on his hand. "Alex, she was with a man. I heard her say, once Ted's contact eliminates Alexander, we'll have everything. The life insurance, the business, everything. He'll never see it coming." Ted, Alex filed the name, though fury threatened to crack his controlled exterior. The other man, Ted, said something about the payment being split 3 ways. Him, Sophia, and someone named Paul, who was handling the hit. Lucy's voice broke. "I pulled out my phone to record, to get proof, but I must have made a noise." The voices stopped. "I ran for my car, but they must have seen me. I heard the door open. Then someone yelled. She heard everything, and then the gunshots. I remember falling, trying to crawl, and then waking up here." Alex's mind catalogued every detail with cold precision. A murder for hire, conspiracy. Sophia and her lover Ted. A hitman named Paul. 3 conspirators. Probably more. "Did you see their faces?" "No, it was too dark, and I was running." "Alex." Lucy's eyes were desperate. "I'm so sorry. If I hadn't gone, you did exactly the right thing by coming to me." Alex kept his voice calm, reassuring. "Lucy, listen carefully. Charlie Wallace's team is protecting you. Don't talk to the police yet. Let me handle this. But they'll come back. They know I can identify. They won't get near you. I promise." Alex stood up. "You're going to Phoenix General, Lucy. You're going to run that program and save lives. These people aren't going to take that from you." Something in his tone made Lucy pause. She studied her brother's face and saw something she had never seen before. It wasn't anger or rage, but a cold, absolute certainty that was somehow more terrifying. "Alex, what are you going to do?" "What I was trained to do," he answered softly. "But first, I need to gather intelligence. Get some rest." Outside Lucy's room, Alex briefed Charlie. "No one gets in except verified medical staff. She doesn't speak to the police without my lawyer present. If anyone suspicious shows up, detain them for questioning." "Like the old days," Charlie said, with a grim smile. "What's the plan?" "Information gathering first, then tactical planning, then execution." Alex left the hospital and sat in his SUV, making another call. Hector answered on the first ring. "I have preliminary intel," Hector said. "Sophia has been in a relationship with Ted Harrison for approximately 8 months. He's a commercial real estate developer, recently divorced, with significant debt, multiple calls and texts between them, neglecting their operational security over the last 2 months. And Alex, your life insurance policy was increased to $3.6 million 6 months ago. Sophia forged your signature on the application. The business deed shows only your name, but she's been consulting with lawyers about Arizona community property law. In a divorce, she'd get at most half. In a death scenario, with the insurance payout, Hector left the sentence hanging. Financial motive established, Alex said. What about Paul? Someone named Paul handling the contract. Searching now. Give me 2 hours. Alex ended the call and drove back toward his apartment, taking an indirect route to check for surveillance. His training screamed warnings. He was now a target, and professionals had been hired. But there was a crucial asymmetry to this situation. They thought they were hunting a bar owner. They had no idea they had hired to kill a man who had spent 12 years becoming one of the most dangerous operators in the U.S. Armed Forces. The ghost had not been factored in. The ghost had not been accounted for in their plans. That would be their fatal mistake. Alex didn't return to his apartment. Instead, he drove to a warehouse 30 miles outside the city, a place he had maintained since leaving Ghost Ops, but had never told Sophia about. Some habits, some precautions were too deeply ingrained to abandon. Unit 247 looked like another corrugated metal door, combination lock, anonymous and forgettable. Inside was another story. The space was organized with military precision. Weapon lockers lined one wall, legally purchased, meticulously maintained. Communications equipment filled secure containers, cash in multiple currencies, 3 different sets of identification documents, clothing suitable for surveillance or tactical operations, and most importantly, files, paper records of his past operations, contacts, resources, an insurance policy he had kept for a day he hoped would never come. Alex changed out of his civilian clothes into dark tactical pants and a form-fitting black shirt. He checked his primary weapon, a Sig Sauer P-226 that had been with him in 17 countries. He loaded a fresh magazine and secured it in a concealed holster. 2 backup weapons, a knife, zip ties, a small medical kit. Then he opened a locked box containing surveillance equipment, directional microphones, camera systems, GPS trackers, digital lockpicks. At 4:15 a.m., his phone vibrated with a message from Hector. Found Paul. Paul Jenkins, 34, mercenary contractor, dishonorable discharge from Army Special Forces 5 years ago for unauthorized violence during a deployment. Now operates as muscle for hire, enforcement, intimidation, and yes, contract eliminations. Has an apartment in Scottsdale, sending address now. Also, Sophia and Ted are at the Grand Hyatt Phoenix, room 412. Alex smiled humorlessly. They were celebrating early. He spent the next hour performing digital reconnaissance. Hector provided him access to hacked security cameras around Sophia and Ted's hotel. Alex watched the recordings from the previous evening. They had arrived at 6:30 p.m., gone to a pricey steakhouse for dinner, and returned to their room at 9:15 p.m. They left the door slightly ajar for room service at 10 p.m., and for that brief moment, Alex could see them on the security footage with champagne glasses in hand, laughing while his sister fought for her life because of them. Alex suppressed the emotion, converted it to fuel. Anger made you careless. Cold determination made you effective. By 6 a.m., Alex was positioned at a coffee shop across from the Grand Hyatt, with a clear line of sight to the entrance. He wore a baseball cap and glasses, utterly forgettable. He ordered a black coffee and a newspaper, playing the part of an early morning business traveler. At 7:43 a.m., Ted Harrison emerged. Alex recognized him from the photos Hector had sent. Tall, early 40s, expensive suit. The kind of manufactured confidence that comes from financial success rather than genuine capability. Ted got into a silver BMW and drove towards the city's business district. Alex followed at a discreet distance, tracking Ted to a commercial real estate office. Through the windows, Alex watched Ted greet employees, settle into a corner office. Normal routine, no apparent concern. They thought they had gotten away with it. They thought Lucy was dead or too badly injured to talk. They thought Alexander Miller would be their next easy target. Alex's phone vibrated. Sophia, still at hotel. Third party en route. Paul Jenkins just entered the lobby. Alex abandoned his surveillance of Ted and returned to the Grand Hyatt. He positioned himself in the parking garage with a clear view of the elevator exits, telephoto camera ready. At 8:17 a.m., the elevator opened. Paul Jenkins stepped out, burly, muscled, shaved head, moving with the controlled aggression of someone trained for violence. More interesting was what happened next. Sophia Grant stepped out beside him, coffee in hand, laughing at something he had said. Alex captured a burst of photographs. The body language was crucial, comfortable, familiar. This wasn't their first meeting. Sophia touched Paul's arm as they spoke. Paul nodded grimly at something she said, then pulled out his phone, showing her something on the screen. They spoke for 3 more minutes before separating. Sophia returned to the elevator. Paul walked towards a black SUV with tinted windows. Alex made a decision. Information was power, but he needed to understand the full scope of the conspiracy. He needed to hear their plans directly. He followed Paul's SUV, maintaining a professional distance until Paul pulled into a run-down apartment complex in Scottsdale. Alex waited 30 minutes, then approached Paul's building wearing a maintenance worker's uniform he had taken from his warehouse. Building security was laughable. A simple lock on the front door, which Alex bypassed in seconds. Paul's apartment was on the 3rd floor, Unit 3D. Alex could hear movement inside, the sound of someone on the phone. Using a fiber optic camera threaded under the door, Alex confirmed Paul was alone, sitting on a couch, intently focused on his phone conversation. "Yeah, the sister's not dead, but she's at the General Hospital under watch," Paul was saying. "No, I'm not going near a hospital with that kind of security. Too risky." A pause as the person on the other end spoke. "I'm being paid $180,000 for the primary target. I don't do hospital jobs for free. Okay, another $36,000. But this is getting complicated. Tomorrow night works. Miller does his closing routine alone after midnight. Easy setup. In and out. Looks like a robbery gone bad." Another pause. "Yeah." Sophia provided his full schedule. "She'll be at the Sterling Hotel establishing an alibi with witnesses." Smart woman. "Okay, tomorrow, 12:30 a.m., I'll take care of it. Transfer the deposit today." Alex retracted the camera and returned to his SUV. Now, he had confirmation. Attempted murder of Lucy. Murder for hire of himself. Sophia and Ted as orchestrators. Paul as the hitman. Tomorrow night at 12:30 a.m. was when Paul planned to make his move. But Alex wasn't the prey here. The ghost was hunting. Back at his warehouse, Alex arrayed his intelligence on a tactical planning board. Photos of the three conspirators, timeline of events, known locations, behavioral patterns, financial motives, communication methods. His phone rang. Martin Reed, the lawyer. Alex, I've been researching the legal framework you asked about. A murder-for-hire conspiracy, even if the murder isn't completed, is a federal felony, under Title 18 of the Federal Criminal Code. Multiple conspirators can each face life in prison. Add an attempted murder of your sister, assault with a deadly weapon, insurance fraud. We're talking decades in prison for everyone involved. What do I need for indictment? Direct evidence of the conspiracy, recorded conversations, financial transactions, communications detailing the plot. The more evidence, the stronger the case. But Alex, be careful how you get it. Illegal surveillance can compromise an indictment. Alex considered this. He didn't particularly care about legal niceties right now. But Martin was right. He wanted these people destroyed, not just temporarily detained. He wanted them in prison for life. Their reputations annihilated. Their freedom taken away. Martin, hypothetically, if a civilian discovered a murder plot and recorded conversations while protecting themselves from imminent danger, would that be admissible in that scenario? Absolutely. Self-defense and defense of others create broad protections. Good to know. Alex ended the call and continued planning. He had approximately 36 hours before Paul's planned attack. That gave him time to set the trap, gather evidence, and orchestrate their downfall. But first, he needed to make one more call to someone he hadn't spoken to in 5 years, someone who had been his commanding officer during his last operations in Ghost Ops. Colonel Roland Foster answered on the third ring, his voice holding the same authority Alex remembered. Miller, I heard rumors you might be coming back online. What do you need? Intelligence and authorization, Colonel. I'm facing a murder-for-hire conspiracy against myself and my sister. Multiple hostiles. I need to operate unofficially for approximately 48 hours to gather evidence and neutralize threats. I'm requesting your consultative oversight to ensure everything I do can withstand later legal scrutiny. Send me the intelligence packet. I'll review it with Military Justice Command and get back to you in 2 hours. Miller, it's good to have the ghost back, even if only temporarily. Alex spent the next 90 minutes preparing a comprehensive intelligence brief, photos, recordings, timelines, evidence of the conspiracy. He sent the encrypted file to Foster and waited. The reply came quickly. Packet received and reviewed. Major General agrees. This is a legitimate self-defense scenario. You are authorized to conduct evidence gathering and threat neutralization operations with the following restrictions. Minimize collateral damage. Maintain chain of custody for evidence. Coordinate with local law enforcement for final arrests. Your Ghost Ops file is being temporarily reactivated for legal protection. You have 72 hours. Make them count. Alex felt something click into place. The familiar sensation of mission authorization, of purpose, aligning with capability. Sophia, Ted, and Paul had made a catastrophic error. They had investigated Alexander Miller, the bar owner. They had seen an easy target, a quiet man with a comfortable life and substantial assets. They never thought to dig deeper. They never discovered that Alexander Miller had once been the ghost, and now the ghost was coming for them. Alex spent the next 12 hours conducting what his Ghost Ops training called pattern of life analysis, mapping his target's movements, habits, vulnerabilities, and psychology. By nightfall, he had a complete operational picture. Ted Harrison lived in a renovated townhouse in the exclusive neighborhood of Paradise Valley, Phoenix. Through careful surveillance, Alex documented Ted's routine: morning run at 6 a.m., arrival at the office at 8 a.m., lunch meetings with clients, gym session at 6 p.m., home by 8 p.m. Ted was methodical, predictable, the kind of target that made surveillance easy. More interestingly, was what Alex uncovered through Hector's forensic computing. Ted's real estate business was failing. He had overextended himself on 3 major properties that were now vacant, bleeding money. His divorce settlement had cost him almost $1.8 million. He was drowning in debt, with creditors circling and bankruptcy looming in 6 months. Sophia represented salvation: a $3.6 million life insurance policy, half ownership of a successful business, liquid assets. Ted wasn't just motivated by greed, he was desperate. Alex positioned himself outside Ted's office at 6:30 p.m., watching through high-powered optics as Ted finished his workday. The man's phone rang, and Alex, through the directional microphone he had placed earlier, picked up the conversation. "Sophia, we need to talk about the timeline," Ted said, his voice tense. "Paul acts tomorrow night, but I'm getting nervous about your sister-in-law if she talks." Sophia's voice came through, cold and calculating. "Lucy is stable, but sedated. Even if she fully wakes, she didn't see our faces. She heard voices, nothing more. Our lawyer says that's circumstantial at best. And the police investigation? What investigation? They found a shooting victim in a driveway. No witnesses, no clear motive. They're treating it as a random assault. Alex hasn't even spoken to them yet. He's too worried about Lucy to think straight." Alex's jaw tightened. Sophia had always been good at reading people, at manipulation. She had spent 3 years studying him, learning his patterns, identifying what she perceived as weaknesses. She thought his concern for Lucy would blind him. She was wrong. "Tomorrow night, I need you to be visible at the Sterling Hotel," Sophia continued. "Book dinner at the Signature Room at 7 p.m. Pay with a credit card. Stay until at least 10 p.m. Security cameras, receipt, witnesses. When Paul handles things at the bar, you won't be anywhere near Phoenix. And you? I'll be at a pharmaceutical conference in Las Vegas. 300 witnesses. I'll get the call about Alex around 1 a.m. The grieving widow, total collapse. The performance of my life." Ted chuckled, bitter and cold. "Still can't believe you married him without knowing about the life insurance potential. That was luck." "Luck, Ted. I researched him for 6 months before we even met. I knew exactly what he was worth, exactly how to play him. The quiet, damaged veteran act, he ate it right up. Made him feel like a protector, a hero. Men like Alex are easy. Give them something broken to fix. Make them feel strong, and they'll never see you coming." Alex cut the audio feed. He had heard enough for now. And staying detached was becoming difficult. Sophia's words confirmed what he had suspected. Their entire relationship had been a scam from the start, a long-term play for financial exploitation. But there was something Sophia didn't know, something she couldn't have researched. Alexander Miller had spent 12 years studying people who were far better at deception than she was. He had interrogated enemy combatants, identified sleeper agents, tracked terrorists through behavioral analysis. Every skill he had learned in that dark world was now being applied to dissect her conspiracy. Alex drove to his next target, Paul Jenkins. Paul's apartment building was under surveillance. By 9 p.m., Alex had placed multiple cameras with overlapping coverage, entrances, parking lot, windows. He had hacked the building's Wi-Fi network, giving Hector access to internal security systems. At 9:47 p.m., Paul left his apartment with a duffel bag and walked towards his SUV. Alex followed at a discreet distance as Paul drove to a self-storage warehouse on the outskirts of Scottsdale. Through night vision optics, Alex watched Paul enter Unit 89 and emerge 15 minutes later with a rifle case and several boxes, ammunition and weapons. Paul was preparing for tomorrow's operation. Alex noted the storage unit number. He would need to coordinate with the police to secure that evidence later. Paul's next stop was more interesting. A rundown tavern called the Black Cat, where he met with 2 other men. Alex captured photographs through the window. Both men had the same military bearing, the same hard edges that marked them as operators or ex-operators. Using facial recognition software, Hector identified them in minutes. First is Brian Matthews, former Marine, dishonorable discharge for theft. Second is Edward Peterson, former Army, discharged for assaulting a superior officer. Both work freelance security. Both have histories of violent crime. Alex watched through the window as Paul spread out photos on the table. Photos of Miller's Bar and Grill, photos of Alex himself, satellite imagery of the area. This wasn't a solo operation. Paul had brought in reinforcements, turning tomorrow night's planned murder into a team mission. The odds had just changed. Alex photographed everything, recorded their conversation through a laser microphone aimed at the window's vibrations. Paul was explaining the plan. Miller closes the bar alone after midnight. Matthews, you cover the back entrance. Peterson, you come in with me through the main entrance. Quick, professional. 2 shots center mass, 1 to the head. We grab the cash register to make it look like a robbery, and we're out in 60 seconds. What about cameras? Matthews asked. I've seen the setup. Old system. Probably doesn't even record. Even if it does, we're wearing masks, gloves, no trace. Alex smiled grimly. The security system was indeed old, deliberately so, but what Paul didn't know was that Alex had installed a separate hidden system that recorded to an external server. Paul's team would be caught in detailed 4K the moment they entered. But more than that, Alex realized the opportunity this presented. 3 conspirators gathered in public discussing a murder without knowing they were being recorded and photographed. This was evidentiary gold, the kind of material that would bury them in court. Alex continued surveillance for another hour, documenting everything. Then he returned to his warehouse to analyze the intelligence. The picture was now complete. Sophia and Ted orchestrating everything. Motivated by financial desperation, Paul Jenkins as the primary contractor, bringing in 2 additional shooters. Timeline set for tomorrow, 12:30 a.m. Paul's storage unit containing weapons and gear. Multiple recorded conversations detailing the conspiracy. Financial records showing Ted's desperation. Evidence of Sophia's long-term deception. Alex had enough to take to the police right then, but there was a problem. None of the recordings would be admissible in court without proper warrants and legal surveillance authorizations. He could prove the conspiracy to a judge, but these people could escape on technicalities. They could hire expensive lawyers who would shred the chain of evidence. That wasn't acceptable. Alex needed them to incriminate themselves with the police watching. He needed them to commit to actions that would be undeniable in court. He needed them to fall into a trap so complete no lawyer could save them. And he knew exactly how to do it. Alex called Martin Reed. I need to file a police report about suspicious behavior around my business. Multiple individuals conducting surveillance. Possible robbery threat. I want an official police presence tomorrow night. That will get you at most a uniform patrol car, Martin responded. Not enough for what you're planning. What if I also reported that my sister's shooting might be connected? That she mentioned my wife and that I'm concerned for my own safety? That could involve detectives, especially with a shooting investigation underway. But Alex, you're playing a dangerous game. If the police are present and these people show up armed, you're looking at a potential shootout. That's exactly what I want. With the police as witnesses, no ambiguity, no legal gray areas. These people tried to murder my sister and plan to murder me. I want them caught in the act on camera with the police watching. I want it so clean, even the most expensive defense attorney in the country couldn't get them off. Martin was silent for a moment. You're not just protecting yourself, you're building a perfect indictment. I was trained to complete missions, Alex said simply. This is a mission. And missions need clear objectives. Neutralize the threat permanently. Protect my sister. Ensure justice is served. Tomorrow night, all 3 objectives will be achieved. I'll make the calls, Martin said. But Alex, be careful. Even with police present, these people are dangerous. Alex almost laughed. Martin didn't know, couldn't know. How dangerous was relative. Paul and his team were mercenaries, motivated by money, operating with standard tactics. Alex was the ghost, motivated by something far more powerful, the protection of his sister and the complete destruction of the people who had betrayed him. There was no comparison. The next morning, Alex met with Detective Raymond Hayes of the Arizona State Prosecutor's Office at the precinct. Hayes was in his mid-40s, experienced with the keen eye of someone who had worked major crimes for years. Mr. Miller, you filed a report about suspicious activity around your business. Hayes began, notepad open. That's right. Alex had rehearsed this carefully. He needed to appear concerned, but not paranoid. Cooperative, but not overwhelming. Over the last week, I've noticed people watching the bar, taking photos, sitting in cars across the street. Last night, I saw 3 men at a bar in Scottsdale, and I recognized one of them. He had been parked outside my business 2 days ago. Did you get photos? Alex pulled out his phone, displaying the surveillance images he had taken at the Black Cat Tavern. These 3, the one on the left, is the one I recognize from my neighborhood. Hayes studied the photos. Mr. Miller, I'm going to be direct with you. Your sister, Lucy Miller, was shot in her driveway 3 nights ago. She's been sedated, but preliminary reports suggest she may have witnessed something. Combined with the surveillance of your business, we have to consider these events might be connected. Connected how? Alex let confusion show, playing the role. I can't discuss an ongoing investigation, but I would like to recommend we have officers present at your location tonight. Plainclothes detectives inside the bar, marked units nearby. If someone is targeting you or planning something, we'll be ready. You think I'm in danger? I think we should take precautions. What time do you usually close? Midnight. I usually spend another 30 to 45 minutes cleaning up, cashing out, and securing the building. Do you do this alone? My bartender, Brandon Smith, leaves at closing. After that, yes, I'm alone. Hayes made notes. Here's what I propose. We'll have 2 plainclothes detectives in your bar tonight. Around 11 p.m., they'll order drinks. They'll blend in with the customers. After closing, they'll remain inside, out of sight. We'll also have 2 patrol units 2 blocks away, ready to respond immediately if anything happens. You really think that's necessary? Alex maintained the demeanor of a concerned but uncertain civilian. Mr. Miller, your sister is in the ICU with a gunshot wound, and you have strangers watching your business. Yes, I think it's necessary. We'll be discreet, but we'll be there. Alex nodded slowly. All right. Thank you, Detective. After leaving the precinct, Alex made a series of carefully orchestrated moves. First, he visited Lucy at the hospital. She was more alert now, sitting up slightly, still guarded by Charlie's security team. How are you feeling? Alex asked, pulling up a chair. Better. The doctors say I was lucky. The bullet missed my heart by inches. They're talking about moving me out of the ICU tomorrow. Lucy studied her brother's face. You look different, calmer, but also, I don't know, dangerous. I'm taking care of things, Alex said simply. Lucy, I need you to trust me on something. A lot is going to happen in the next 24 hours. The police will probably want to interview you. When they do, tell them everything you saw. Don't hold anything back. Don't try to protect me or second-guess anything. Just tell the truth. Alex, what are you planning? Justice, he responded. For you, for me, for everyone these people have hurt, or plan to hurt. But I need you safe while it happens. Charlie's team is going to move you to a private facility tonight, to a safe house. You'll be fully protected. Is it about Sophia? It's about making sure those responsible are held accountable. Alex squeezed her hand. Trust me. Lucy searched his face and found certainty there. Competence, the same quality she had seen in their father before he died. Absolute capability. I trust you. Alex's next call was to Charlie. How's the secure transport? Ready whenever you want. We've got a private medical facility 40 miles west, fully staffed, security team in place. She'll get better care than at the general hospital, and zero chance of anyone getting near her. Move her tonight at 8 p.m. before things go active. I don't want any chance of crossfire or complications. Understood? By 4 p.m., Alex received a message from Sophia. Hey, honey, conference is running long. Probably won't be back until Thursday. Miss you. Alex looked at the message. The casual lies, the fake affection, the emoji that was supposed to convey warmth. He replied, No problem, take care, love you. The words tasted like ash, but maintained the deception. Sophia couldn't know he was aware of the plot. She needed to believe he was the same trusting, naive man he had always been. At 6 p.m., Hector sent Alex the final electronic intelligence packet, comprehensive financial records for Ted and Sophia, showing recent communication with Paul. Bank transfers totaling $36,000 from Ted to Paul's offshore account 2 weeks ago. Deposit for the contract. Phone records showing 47 calls between Sophia and Ted in the last month. Text messages that grew progressively bolder about their relationship and plans. All documented, time-stamped, ready for indictment. Alex reviewed the material with satisfaction. Even if tonight didn't go exactly as planned, he had enough digital evidence to bury them. But he wanted more. He wanted them caught in the act on video with the police as witnesses. At 10:30 p.m., Alex opened Miller's Bar and Grill for what would likely be its last normal night. The clientele was typical for a Tuesday. A dozen regulars, a few couples, Brandon Smith, working efficiently at the bar alongside Alex. At 11 p.m. sharp, two men entered. Alex recognized them immediately as detectives despite their plain clothes. The way they scanned the room, the slight bulge under their jackets where their weapons were, the professional awareness. They took a corner booth with a clear line of sight to both entrances. Brandon leaned towards Alex. "Those two are cops, right?" "Security precaution," Alex said in a low voice. "Don't worry about it. Act normal." At midnight, Alex called last round. The remaining customers finished their drinks and trickled out over the next 20 minutes. Brandon cleaned up the bar area, restocked bottles, completed his usual closing routine. "Okay if I head out?" Brandon asked at 12:25 a.m. "Got a big exam tomorrow." "Go ahead. I'll handle it." Brandon grabbed his coat and exited through the back entrance, locking it behind him as usual. Alex was now alone in the bar with two undercover detectives hidden in the corner booth. The lights were dimmed, everything appearing normal from the outside. At 12:27 a.m., Alex's phone vibrated with a message from Hector. 3 heat signatures approaching the bar. 2 front, 1 covering the rear. They're in position. Alex felt his pulse steady, training taking over. He moved behind the bar, positioning himself with clear sightlines and cover. The detectives, sensing something, shifted slightly, their hands moving closer to their weapons. At 12:31 a.m., the front door handle rattled. Then a sound Alex recognized instantly, a lockpick working the mechanism, professional, practiced, silent. The door opened. 2 figures entered, faces covered by balaclavas, gloved hands holding suppressed pistols. Paul Jenkins and Edward Peterson, exactly as planned. From the corner booth, Detective Hayes rose, weapon drawn. "Police, drop your weapons!" Paul reacted instantly, his professional training kicking in. He swung his weapon towards Hayes. But before he could fire, Alex moved from behind the bar, his own weapon raised, targeting Paul's center mass. "Don't do it," Alex said, his voice holding absolute authority. "There's nowhere to go." Paul's eyes widened behind the mask as he registered Alex's stance, the professional weapon handling, the complete lack of fear. This wasn't the civilian bar owner they had been briefed on. Hayes's partner emerged from cover, also weapon drawn. "Drop the weapons now! Get down!" Tires squealed as patrol units arrived. Sirens blared. Lights flooded the street. Brian Matthews, covering the rear entrance, was taken down by 2 officers in seconds. Paul made his decision. He dropped his weapon, raising his hands. Edward Peterson did the same. "On the ground, face down," Hayes commanded. "Hands behind your head." As Paul and Peterson complied, being cuffed by the detectives, Alex maintained his covered position. He didn't holster his weapon until both suspects were completely secured. "Mr. Miller," Hayes said, his voice holding new respect. "You can put your weapon down now. We've got it handled." Alex secured his pistol and placed it on the bar. "They were supposed to kill me tonight, make it look like a robbery." "Yeah," Hayes said, studying Alex with new intensity. "We knew that when they came in with suppressed weapons and lockpicks. Mr. Miller, I think you and I need to have a longer conversation about who you really are." Alex met Hayes's eyes. "Former military, specialized training. I left that life 5 years ago, But when I found out there were people trying to murder me and that they had already shot my sister, old instincts kicked in. Hayes nodded slowly. We'll need full statements, but first, he turned to Paul, who was now being read his rights. We need to talk about who hired you. Paul remained silent, but Edward Peterson, younger and more terrified, folded almost immediately. We were just contractors, boss. Paul got the job. We were backup. Didn't know anything except the target and the money. Who paid you? Hayes demanded. Some real estate guy. Ted something. Paul handled the negotiations. Hayes looked at Alex. You know anyone named Ted? Ted Harrison, Alex said softly. He's involved with my wife, Sophia. I believe they orchestrated this together. The room fell silent. Hayes's expression shifted to one of understanding. Your wife arranged your murder? My sister overheard them discussing it 3 nights ago. That's why she was shot. She witnessed their conspiracy. She came to warn me, and they tried to eliminate her. Hayes processed this. We're going to need to bring in more detectives. This just became a major conspiracy case. He turned to his partner. Call the district attorney's office. We need arrest warrants for Ted Harrison and Sophia Grant. And we need them now. As the bar filled with police personnel, crime scene technicians photographing everything, collecting evidence, Alex felt a cold satisfaction. The first phase of his mission was complete. Paul, Edward, and Brian would be charged with attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, home invasion, and a dozen other counts. The evidence was overwhelming. Caught in the act, weapons in hand, recorded conversations, photographic surveillance, but the architects of the conspiracy were still free, not for long. By 3 a.m., the Arizona State Prosecutor's Office headquarters buzzed with activity. Alex sat in an interrogation room with Detective Hayes and Assistant District Attorney Karen Stevens, a sharp woman in her 30s who had been pulled out of bed to handle the case. Mr. Miller, Stevens began, you're either extremely lucky or extremely skilled. Most civilians facing 3 armed intruders end up dead. I received extensive military training, Alex replied, maintaining his cover. 12 years in special operations before retiring. What kind of special operations? Hayes asked. The kind I'm not permitted to discuss. My service records are classified, but I can provide contact information for my former commanding officer who can verify my background. Stevens took notes. Your sister is Lucy Miller, currently in the ICU at Phoenix General Hospital with a gunshot wound sustained 3 nights ago at your residence. You believe her shooting and tonight's attempted murder are connected? I know they are, Alex said. He pulled out his phone and brought up the recordings. Before I knew about the attempt on my life, I was conducting my own investigation. I recorded these conversations. He played the recording of Sophia and Ted discussing the murder plot. Paul describing his plan to his team. The discussions at the Black Cat. With each recording, Stevens's expression grew more intense. Mr. Miller, she said, carefully, how did you obtain these recordings? I installed audio surveillance in public spaces. The tavern where Paul met his team, exterior microphones near my business where I had reason to believe threats were being discussed. Everything was obtained on property I own or in public places where there's no expectation of privacy. It was technically true, though Alex had also used more invasive methods he wouldn't disclose. The key recordings, however, were legally obtained and admissible. I also have financial records. Alex provided the USB drive Hector had prepared. Bank transfers from Ted Harrison to Paul Jenkins. Text messages between Ted and my wife Sophia discussing their relationship and plans. phone records showing extensive communication and documentation of my life insurance policy, which was increased to $3.6 million 6 months ago with a forged signature. Stevens reviewed the materials, her prosecutor's mind cataloging the evidence. This is comprehensive. Mr. Miller, were you planning to bring this to us? I filed a police report yesterday about suspicious activity. Detective Hayes can confirm I came to you first, but yes, I wanted to gather enough evidence to ensure a conviction. I didn't want these people to escape on technicalities. He wanted them caught in the act, Hayes chimed in. That's why he cooperated with our protection detail. He knew it was coming tonight. I had strong reasons to believe an attempt would be made. Yes. Stevens leaned back. Here's where we stand. Paul Jenkins, Edward Peterson, and Brian Matthews are in custody, caught red-handed attempting murder. The evidence against them is overwhelming. They face a minimum of 20 years, likely more. Based on these recordings and financial records, we have probable cause for arrest warrants for Ted Harrison and Sophia Grant on charges of conspiracy to commit homicide, solicitation of homicide, attempted homicide, fraud, and criminal association. When do we act on them? Hayes asked. Now. Ted is local, correct? Townhouse in Paradise Valley. Alex provided the address. Sophia is at the Grand Hyatt in Las Vegas for a pharmaceutical conference. Room 412. How do you know that? Stevens began, then stopped herself. Never mind. I don't want to know. I'll contact Las Vegas Police Department to detain Sophia. Hayes, take a team to Ted's location. I want both of them in custody before sunrise. At 4:15 a.m., Alex watched via a security camera feed Hector provided as 6 police vehicles surrounded Ted Harrison's townhouse. Hayes led a team to the door, warrant in hand. Ted answered in a bathrobe, confused and annoyed, but that turned to panic when he saw the badges and drawn weapons. Ted Harrison, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit homicide, solicitation of homicide, and fraud. You have the right to remain silent. Through the camera feed, Alex watched Ted's face collapse. He saw the reality of his situation destroy the facade of confidence. Ted tried to speak, to protest, to deny, but Hayes was professional and thorough, cuffing him and leading him to a patrol car. Simultaneously, Las Vegas police entered the Grand Hyatt. Alex couldn't access those cameras, but Stevens kept Hayes updated by phone. Sophia Grant opened the door, thinking it was room service, Stevens recounted. She's in custody, demanding a lawyer, claiming this is a misunderstanding. Las Vegas PD reports she had a packed suitcase and a passport. Looks like she might have been planning to flee. By 6 a.m., both Ted and Sophia were in custody at the Arizona State Prosecutor's Office in separate interrogation rooms. Alex watched through a one-way mirror as detectives attempted to question Sophia. She was good, Alex admitted. Even in shock, facing arrest, she maintained her composure. She refused to answer questions, demanded an attorney, revealed nothing. Her training as a pharmaceutical sales representative, the practiced charm, the ability to read and manipulate people, it served her well under pressure. Ted, by contrast, was crumbling. In his interrogation room, he sweated, trembled, clearly terrified. When his lawyer arrived, Ted immediately began talking about cooperation, about deals, about providing evidence. Your client faces life in prison, Ada Stevens told Ted's attorney. Conspiracy to commit homicide, solicitation of homicide, attempted homicide of Lucy Miller. But if he provides substantial cooperation, we can discuss a reduction of charges. Ted's lawyer consulted briefly with him, then nodded. My client is willing to cooperate fully. We need everything, Stevens said. How did the conspiracy begin? Every conversation, every plan, every detail. Ted began to speak. Alex listened as Ted provided a narrative that matched his intelligence but added crucial details. Sophia approached me 8 months ago. We met at a business event. She was charming, beautiful, interested in real estate investment. We started seeing each other, and after a few weeks, she told me her situation. She had married Alexander Miller, thinking he had more money than he did. The bar was successful, but not enough for the lifestyle she wanted. She had researched his background, knew about his military service, but nothing specific. She just saw him as another veteran running a small business. When did murder become part of the plan? Stevens asked. About 5 months ago. Sophia was frustrated, talking about divorce, but that wouldn't get her much. Maybe half the business value at most. Then she found out she could increase his life insurance. She forged his signature on the application, made it look routine. A $3.6 million payout directly to her as beneficiary. And you agreed to help murder your husband for money? Ted's face twitched. I was desperate. My business is failing. I'm drowning in debt. Sophia promised half the insurance payout plus the value of the business sale. It was my way out. She said Alexander was just a bar owner, a quiet guy. He wouldn't see it coming. She made it sound easy. Who contacted Paul Jenkins? Me. Sophia found him through, I don't know, some contact she had. She gave me his number. I negotiated the price. $180,000 for the murder to make it look like a robbery. And Lucy Miller? Ted's expression shifted to fear. That wasn't supposed to happen. Sophia called me in a panic, said Lucy had shown up unexpectedly, had overheard us discussing the plan. Paul and I were at Alexander's apartment waiting for him, but he never came home. Lucy showed up instead. When she heard us and ran, Paul made a decision. He said we couldn't leave a witness. I didn't want him to shoot her, but he did anyway. So you're saying Paul acted alone in shooting Lucy? Yes. I never agreed to harm her. That was all Paul. Through the mirror, Alex watched this performance with cold analysis. Ted was trying to minimize his role, shift blame to Paul and Sophia, but the recordings proved otherwise. Ted had been a full participant in every discussion, every plan. Stevens pressed harder. Mr. Harrison, we have recorded conversations proving you knew about and approved the shooting of Lucy Miller. You discussed it with Sophia afterward, talking about how to handle potential testimony. So I'll ask you again. Tell me the truth, or your cooperation means nothing. Ted's lawyer whispered urgently to him. Ted slumped. Okay. After Paul shot Lucy, Sophia and I talked about it. We decided to go forward anyway. We thought Lucy would die, or be too badly injured to remember clearly. We thought we could still make it work. So yes, I knew about the shooting, and yes, I agreed to proceed with Alexander's murder afterward. Stevens nodded. That's better. Now tell me about the insurance fraud. Ted provided details of how Sophia had researched insurance policies, found a company with minimal verification, forged Alex's signature, and set up the policy. She had been meticulous, careful, planning months in advance. By 9 a.m., Ted had told all, a full confession implicating himself and Sophia in every aspect of the conspiracy. His cooperation would reduce his charges, but he still faced over 20 years in prison. Sophia, meanwhile, maintained absolute silence. Her lawyer was expensive, brought in from the Sterling Hotel, clearly experienced in major crimes. She said nothing, admitted nothing, and waited for the evidence to be presented. Stevens met Alex outside the interrogation rooms. Sophia is smarter than Ted. She knows we have to prove everything. But with Ted's testimony, Paul's eventual cooperation once he realizes the situation, the recordings, the financial evidence, and the attempted murder caught on camera, we have an overwhelming case. She's going to trial. How long until sentencing? Alex asked. The trial could take 6 months to a year, but she's not getting bail. Flight risk, seriousness of charges, she'll be in custody the whole time. Same with Ted. Alex nodded. It was the outcome he had engineered. But there was one more element he needed to address. What about my sister's safety? If Sophia has contacts, if there's anyone else involved, we're poring over Sophia's phone records and financials now. If there are other conspirators, we'll find them. But Mr. Miller, you should know we're also looking into your actions, some of your surveillance methods, some of your evidence gathering. It bordered on illegal. Alex met her eyes. Everything I did was to protect myself and my sister from people who tried to murder us. I used skills I learned in military service, but I didn't violate any laws. I conducted surveillance in public spaces and on property I own. I recorded conversations where there was no expectation of privacy. I cooperated fully with law enforcement when I understood the scope of the threat. If you find any illegal actions, charge me. But I believe you'll find everything I did falls within self-defense and citizen investigation. Stevens studied him for a long moment. You're either very smart or very well trained. Probably both. For now, you're a witness and a victim, not a suspect. But Mr. Miller, whatever it was you did before becoming a bar owner, whatever training you have, it's clear you're more than you let on. I'm just someone protecting his family, Alex responded simply. Isn't that what anyone would do? 3 days after the arrests, Alex sat with Lucy in her new private hospital room. Spacious, secure, with Charlie's security team maintaining discreet protection. She was recovering quickly, doctors amazed by her resilience. They say I might be able to go home next week, Lucy said. But home was complicated. She now needed a secure place, a guarded place, until the trial concluded. You're staying with me, Alex said. I'm converting the apartment above the bar. 2 bedrooms, full security system, and Charlie's team will maintain regular patrols. Alex, I can't let... You're my sister. You almost died because of me. This isn't negotiable. Lucy squeezed his hand. This isn't because of you. It's because you married a monster who saw you as a target. Alex had spent the last 72 hours processing that truth. Sophia's deception had been complete. 3 years of manufactured affection, calculated intimacy, strategic manipulation. Every moment of their relationship had been a lie, a performance designed to position her for maximum financial gain. The rage he had initially felt had cooled into something harder, colder. Sophia would spend decades in prison. Ted would lose everything and join her. Paul and his team would never see freedom again. Their lives were effectively over, but Alex needed to understand the full extent. He needed to know if there were other threats, other conspirators. Hector had been performing a deep dive into Sophia's background, financial records, and communications. Now, sitting in Alex's warehouse, which had become an informal operations center, Hector presented his findings. Sophia Grant was not her original name, Hector said, displaying documents on multiple screens. She was born Sophia Andrews. She legally changed her name 8 years ago. Before that, she was involved in 2 previous relationships with wealthy men. Both ended under suspicious circumstances. Alex leaned forward. Define suspicious. First relationship. Thomas Carter, successful attorney, died in a car accident 6 months after updating his will to include Sophia as the primary beneficiary. Insurance paid out $1.44 million. Investigation showed possible brake tampering, but nothing could be proven. Sophia collected and disappeared. Second relationship. Mark Evans, tech entrepreneur. They were engaged when he died of an apparent drug overdose. Toxicology showed a lethal mix of prescription drugs. Sophia claimed no knowledge of his drug use, but she was the beneficiary of a $2.16 million life insurance policy. Again, investigation found inconsistencies, but couldn't build an indictment case. Sophia collected and moved to Arizona, where she reinvented herself as Sophia Grant. Alex took this in, connecting the pattern. She's done this before, multiple times. We're not her first targets. We're the third, possibly fourth or fifth, Hector corrected. These are just the ones I found documented. Who knows how many relationships she's had, whether men survived or their deaths weren't investigated. This is evidence of a pattern. Can we use it at trial? I've already contacted ADA Stevens. She's coordinating with investigators in the jurisdictions where those deaths occurred. It's circumstantial, but combined with the current charges, it paints a picture of a serial predator. The judge might allow evidence of prior acts to establish pattern and motive. Alex stood, pacing the small space. What about Ted? He's clean before this. Ted is exactly what he appears. A desperate businessman who made catastrophic choices, no prior criminal record, no violent incidents, just escalating debt and poor judgment. Sophia targeted him the same way she targeted you. She found someone with resources who was vulnerable to manipulation. So, she's the primary architect. Ted is just another victim she recruited. That's my assessment. It doesn't excuse his actions. But in the hierarchy of culpability, Sophia is at the top. She planned this. She engineered it. She would have moved on to the next target if you hadn't stopped her. The warehouse door opened and Martin Reed entered with a briefcase. Alex, we need to talk about your situation. What situation? Martin sat down, opened his briefcase, and pulled out documents. The district attorney's office is still deciding whether to press charges against you for some of your surveillance activities. You technically violated several statutes on wiretapping and privacy. The only thing protecting you right now is the self-defense argument and the fact that you ultimately coordinated with the police. But Colonel Foster pulled strings. Your Ghost Ops service record was quietly reviewed by the U.S. Department of Justice. They've decided that prosecuting you would open up questions about classified operations and set problematic precedents for veterans using defensive skills. They're essentially letting you off the hook. But Alex, you need to understand how close you came to this turning on you. Alex sat down, the weight of the consequences settling in. I did what I had to do to protect Lucy and myself. I know. Legally, we can argue you are acting in immediate defense of life. But in the future, if something like this happens again, it won't, Alex interrupted. This was an extraordinary situation. I don't plan on making a habit of conducting counterintelligence operations. Martin smiled faintly. Good, because Stevens also mentioned that your tactical skills, your surveillance capabilities, and your overall operational competence have piqued the interest of several federal agencies into your background. Apparently, someone with your skill set retiring to run a bar raises questions. My service record is classified. They can be curious all they want. Just be ready for the attention. You've demonstrated capabilities that are rare in civilians. People notice. After Martin left, Alex received a call from Detective Hayes. Miller, I thought you'd want to know. Paul Jenkins decided to cooperate. Once he realized Ted had talked and the evidence was overwhelming, he figured reducing his sentence was his only option. What's he saying? He confirms everything Ted said, adds details about the planning. But here's the interesting part. Paul mentioned that Sophia approached him a month before hiring him for your murder. She wanted information on cleaning up loose ends. She was asking about how to make murders look accidental, about substances that could cause heart attacks, about professional contractors who could handle difficult situations. Alex felt a cold certainty. She was already planning to kill Ted after my death. That's our assessment too. Once she had the insurance money and the business assets, Ted became a liability. Someone who knew too much. Paul says Sophia inquired about the costs for 2 separate jobs, but only hired one. We believe she planned to eliminate Ted within months of killing you. Ted was always a dead man walking. He just didn't know it. Yeah, we're re-interviewing him with this new information. His lawyer is going to have a wild day. Sophia wasn't just planning to murder you, she was planning to murder her accomplice. It adds another dimension to her culpability. After the call ended, Alex sat in silence, processing the full extent of Sophia's pathology. She wasn't just a gold digger or an opportunistic killer. She was a predator, systematic and ruthless, who saw people as resources to be exploited and eliminated. How many others had she targeted? How many relationships had she evaluated and discarded? How close had Alex been to being just another obituary in her trail of victims? His phone vibrated with a message from Lucy. Doctors say I can have visitors besides you and Charlie's team. Would you bring me some real food? Hospital food is terrible. Alex smiled. The darkness lifted slightly. Lucy was alive. He had protected her. Sophia and Ted were in custody. Paul's team would never threaten anyone again. The mission, ultimately, had been a success. But as Alex locked up the warehouse and drove towards a restaurant to get Lucy's favorite food, he couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't quite over. Sophia was in custody, but she was also brilliant, manipulative, and patient. Women like her didn't give up easily. He needed to stay alert at least until the trial concluded, and the sentences were final. The ghost could rest, but he couldn't disappear completely. Not yet. 8 months later, the trial of Sophia Grant and Ted Harrison became one of Phoenix's most publicized criminal cases. The prosecution presented a narrative of cold-blooded conspiracy, methodical planning, and ruthless execution that captivated public attention. Alex attended every day of the trial, sitting in the gallery, observing the proceedings with the same analytical precision he once used in mission debriefs. Lucy sat beside him, fully recovered physically, but still processing the trauma of almost dying. Assistant District Attorney Karen Stevens was masterful in her prosecution. She built the case methodically, presenting evidence in layers that progressively shredded any defense strategy. Day 1. Establishing the conspiracy. Stevens laid out the timeline. showed the relationship between Sophia and Ted, demonstrated the financial motives, bank transfers, phone records, text messages, all presented as exhibits. Day 2. The life insurance fraud. Handwriting experts testified that Sophia had forged Alex's signature on the insurance application. Insurance investigators explained how the policy had been processed without proper verification due to Sophia's manipulation of the system. Day 3. The attempted homicide of Lucy Miller. Lucy took the stand, describing what she had overheard, the terror of being shot, the months of recovery. Her testimony was compelling, emotional, and devastating. Defense attorneys tried to challenge her recollection of the voices, but Alex's recordings confirmed everything she had said. Day 4. The murder-for-hire plot. Paul Jenkins testified as a cooperating witness, describing in detail how Ted had contacted him, negotiated payment, and planned Alex's death. Edward Peterson and Brian Matthews corroborated Paul's testimony, each attempting to minimize their own roles while confirming the conspiracy. Day 5. Ted's confession. The jury watched the video of Ted's interview, heard him describe the planning, the financial desperation, the moment he chose murder over bankruptcy. His lawyer attempted to argue coercion and manipulation by Sophia, painting Ted as another victim. But the evidence showed he had been a willing participant. Day 6. Sophia's pattern of behavior. Over defense objections, Stevens presented evidence of Sophia's prior relationships with Thomas Carter and Mark Evans. Though their deaths could not be definitively proven as murders, the pattern was clear. Wealthy men, large insurance policies, suspicious deaths, and Sophia collecting the money before disappearing. The defense strongly objected, arguing prejudice, but Judge Oliver Franklin allowed the testimony under pattern and practice rules. The jury heard from investigators who had worked those cases, from family members of the deceased men who had always suspected Sophia, from insurance professionals who had flagged the policies as suspicious. The second week began with the most dramatic testimony, Alex himself. Stevens had thoroughly prepped him, but Alex needed no coaching. He spoke with clarity, factually, with the quiet precision of someone accustomed to after-action reports. "Mr. Miller," Stevens asked, "when did you realize your wife was planning to murder you?" "When my sister told me what she had overheard, Sophia and Ted discussing my elimination, the insurance payout, the business assets, it was clear, explicit, and left no room for misinterpretation." "How did that make you feel?" Alex paused, considering his words. "Betrayed, obviously, but more than that, I felt responsible. Lucy had been shot because she tried to warn me. She almost died because of choices I had made, because I trusted the wrong person. What did you do with that information?" "I used my training. I served in military special operations for 12 years before retiring. I knew how to conduct surveillance, gather intelligence, and identify threats. I documented everything, recorded conversations, gathered evidence, and then coordinated with law enforcement to ensure these people were apprehended. Some have criticized your methods as invasive or as vigilante justice. How do you respond to that?" "I respond that 3 armed men broke into my business planning to murder me, that my sister almost died from a gunshot wound, and that my actions ensured those responsible were caught and held accountable within a legal system. I did not take justice into my own hands. I built a case and delivered it to the police. I would make the same decisions again. Defense cross-examination attempted to paint Alex as paranoid, as overreacting, as conducting illegal surveillance. But Alex remained calm, factual, unshakable. He admitted to surveillance, but explained it was on his own property or in public spaces. He acknowledged his military background, but refused to provide classified details. He presented himself exactly as he was, a capable, intelligent man who had protected himself and his sister from genuine threats. Sophia's lawyer, a high-priced defender named Richard Nelson, tried a different tactic. "Mr. Miller, isn't it true that you never actually saw Sophia in your apartment the night Lucy was shot? You have no direct proof that she pulled the trigger. I have her voice on a recording discussing the murder plot. I have bank transfers from her accomplice to the hitmen. I have the testimony of multiple witnesses. I don't need to have seen her pull the trigger to establish her culpability in the conspiracy. But you cannot prove beyond a reasonable doubt that she specifically ordered Lucy's shooting. I can prove that she and Ted were in my apartment discussing my murder when Lucy arrived. I can prove Lucy was shot by the man they had hired. The legal standard for conspiracy does not require proof of who gave every specific order. It requires proof of an agreement to commit the crime and actions to further that agreement. The evidence meets that standard." Nelson tried several more approaches, but Alex deflected each with precision. He had prepared for this, studied the legal strategies, and understood the defense tactics. He gave them nothing. The climax of the trial came when Sophia took the stand. A risky move her lawyers had debated, but ultimately decided was necessary. She needed to present herself as sympathetic, as a victim of Ted's manipulation, as someone who had been trapped in an abusive conspiracy. She was convincing. Alex watched her performance with a mixture of professional admiration and deep revulsion. She cried at appropriate moments. She expressed horror at Ted's actions. She claimed she had been terrified and coerced. She painted herself as a victim, a woman trapped by a dangerous man who had threatened her if she didn't cooperate. It was a masterful performance, and for a moment, Alex wondered if the jury might believe it. Then Stevens began cross-examination. "Ms. Grant, you testified that Ted Harrison coerced you into participating in this conspiracy. Is that correct?" "Yes. He said if I didn't help him, he would hurt me, Alexander, my family." "When did these threats begin?" "About 6 months ago, when Ted started having financial troubles." "I see. And yet, bank records show you increased your husband's life insurance 8 months ago, before Ted's alleged threats began. How do you explain that?" Sophia faltered slightly. "I wanted to make sure Alexander was protected. It was just responsible financial planning. By forging his signature and lying to the insurance company, you didn't think he would care. It was for our benefit." "For your benefit, meaning you, the sole beneficiary. Alexander received no benefit from his own policy." Sophia's composure cracked. "I was protecting our future." Stevens pressed harder. "Let's talk about your past. You were formerly known as Sophia Andrews, correct? I changed my name for personal reasons. Those personal reasons wouldn't include escaping investigation into the suspicious deaths of 2 prior partners, would they?" "Objection." Nelson sprang to his feet. "That is prejudicial and has been ruled inadmissible as character evidence." "Proceed," Judge Franklin said. "Rephrase, ADA Stevens." Stevens nodded. "Ms. Grant, in your previous relationships with Thomas Carter and Mark Evans, Both men died shortly after making you a beneficiary to significant life insurance policies. Is that a coincidence? Objection. Denied. The pattern has been admitted. Answer the question, Ms. Grant. Sophia's mask slipped further. They were tragedies. I had nothing to do with their deaths. Yet you collected significant insurance payouts on both occasions and then disappeared. I was grieving. I needed to start fresh. Or you were moving on to your next target, Stevens said coldly. You are not a victim, Ms. Grant. You are a predator who targets vulnerable men, manipulates them, and then orchestrates their deaths for financial gain. Isn't that the truth? No, I loved Alexander. You loved his assets. You loved the $3.6 million insurance policy you fraudulently obtained. You loved the business you planned to sell after his death. But Alexander himself, he was just another mark in a series of cons that has been your life's work. Sophia completely broke down. Her composure shattered. The jury watched as her carefully constructed persona collapsed, revealing the calculating predator underneath. The defense attempted to rehabilitate her testimony, but the damage was done. The jury had seen through the act. Closing arguments were powerful by both sides, but Stevens' summary was devastating. She took the jury through every piece of evidence, every testimony, every recording. She connected the dots systematically, building an irrefutable case. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a complicated case. It is not a mystery. It is a simple story of greed, manipulation, and murder. Sophia Grant and Ted Harrison planned to murder Alexander Miller for money. They hired professional killers. When Lucy Miller discovered their plan, they attempted to murder her. They would have succeeded too, if not for Alexander's courage, intelligence, and determination to protect his sister and ensure justice was served. The evidence is overwhelming. The testimony is clear. The law is straightforward. Your job is to hold these defendants accountable for their actions. Find them guilty on all counts. Thank you. The jury deliberated for 7 hours. Guilty on all counts. The sentencing hearing took place 6 weeks after the verdict. Judge Franklin's courtroom was packed. Media, victims' families, curious onlookers drawn by the conclusion of Phoenix's most sensational criminal case in years. Alex sat in the front row with Lucy beside him. She had fully recovered physically and had accepted the position at Phoenix General Hospital, though she delayed her start date to see the trial through. Today would bring closure, or as close to closure as victims ever get. Judge Franklin reviewed the verdicts and presentence reports with methodical precision. Then he addressed the defendants. Ted Harrison, please rise. Ted stood, looking gaunt and broken. Prison had not treated him well. His expensive suits were gone, replaced by an orange jumpsuit. His confident demeanor had eroded into resignation. Mr. Harrison, you have been convicted of conspiracy to commit homicide, solicitation of homicide, attempted homicide, fraud, and criminal association. The prosecution has recommended 40 years to life in prison. Your attorney has asked for leniency, citing your cooperation and claiming you were manipulated by Ms. Grant. I have reviewed all materials and considered all arguments. While it is true that you cooperated, your cooperation came only after you were caught. You were a full participant in planning 2 murders. You paid the contractors who shot Lucy Miller. You stood to benefit from Alexander Miller's death, Your financial desperation may explain your actions, but it does not excuse them. I hereby sentence you to 40 years in state penitentiary for the charge of conspiracy to commit homicide, 20 years for the charge of attempted homicide, and 10 years for the charge of fraud, all to run consecutively. Total sentence 70 years. With good behavior and potential parole, you will be eligible for review after serving 35 years. Mr. Harrison, you will spend the rest of your productive life in prison. Ted sagged as the guards held him. He would be 80 years old before possible release. Sophia Grant, please rise. Sophia stood, and Alex saw something chilling. Even now, even after everything, she maintained a core of defiant composure. She had broken down on the stand, but she had rebuilt herself in the intervening weeks. She met Judge Franklin's eyes with something approaching arrogance. Ms. Grant, or should I say Ms. Andrews, your case is one of the most disturbing I have encountered in 23 years on the bench. The prosecution has presented compelling evidence that you have made a career of targeting, manipulating, and possibly murdering multiple men for financial gain. While we can only prosecute crimes committed in my jurisdiction, the pattern suggests you are a serial predator. You have been convicted of conspiracy to commit homicide, solicitation of homicide, attempted homicide, fraud, criminal association, and identity theft. The prosecution has recommended life without parole. I have considered your age, 34, and the possibility of rehabilitation. I have reviewed the psychological assessments that describe you as highly intelligent, manipulative, and lacking normal empathy. I have read the victim impact statements from Alexander Miller, Lucy Miller, and the family members of your previous partners. My conclusion is this: you represent a continuing danger to society. You are calculating, patient, and ruthless. If you were released, you would continue to target vulnerable individuals. Therefore, I sentence you to life without parole for the charge of conspiracy to commit homicide, with additional consecutive sentences totaling 90 years for the remaining charges. Ms. Grant, you will never leave prison. You will die behind bars. This is not vengeance. It is the protection of society from someone who has proven to be irredeemable. Sophia's composure cracked again. You can't do this. I have rights. I'll appeal. You have the right to appeal, and I'm sure you will. But this sentence is legal, appropriate, and just. Guards, remove her. As Sophia was led away, screaming protests and threats, Alex felt something release inside him. Not exactly satisfaction, but completion. The mission was truly over. Paul Jenkins and his team had been sentenced the previous month. Paul received 45 years, Edward Peterson 30 years, Brian Matthews 35 years. All would die in prison. After the hearing, Alex and Lucy stood outside the courthouse. Media swarmed, but Martin Reed kept them at bay. "How do you feel?" a reporter shouted. "Has justice been served?" Alex considered his answer. Justice is served when the legal system functions as designed, when criminals are caught, prosecuted, and held accountable. That happened here. I'm grateful to the Arizona State Prosecutor's Office, the District Attorney's Office, and the jury who spent months ensuring the correct outcome. My sister can move on with her life. I can rebuild mine. That's all I wanted. Later, sitting in Lucy's hospital room, where she was having a final checkup before moving to Phoenix, Alex felt the weight of the last year settling into memory. "What are you going to do now?" Lucy asked. "Reopen the bar. I'm selling it," Alex said. Too many memories, too much publicity. I've had offers from several buyers. I'll probably take 6 months off, travel, figure out what's next. Could you come to Phoenix? Phoenix General Hospital is always looking for security consultants. And with your background, Alex smiled. Maybe, or maybe I'll start something new. The ghost is retired, Lucy. I'd like him to stay that way. The ghost? Alex hesitated, then decided she deserved to know. My code name in Ghost Ops, the Ghost. I was good at what I did, perhaps too good. When I left that life, I promised myself I would never go back. These last few months forced me to use those skills again. But it was in defense, protection, not attack. You saved my life, Lucy said softly. You took the people who tried to kill us and made sure they could never hurt anyone again. If that's what it means to be the ghost, I'm grateful you exist. Alex squeezed her hand. The ghost protected his sister. That's all that matters. 6 months later, Alex stood on a beach in San Diego, watching the sunset over the Pacific. He had sold the bar, closed down his old life, and taken time to process everything that had happened. Sophia and Ted were in federal penitentiary, their appeals working their way through the system. But with little chance of success, Paul and his team were scattered across different facilities. The conspiracy had been completely dismantled. Alex's phone vibrated. A message from Colonel Foster. Saw the news about the trial's conclusion. Well done. If you ever want to come back, even for consulting work, the door's open. The ghost is always welcome. Alex typed a reply. Appreciate it, Colonel, but I'm content watching sunsets and being boring. The ghost earned his retirement. He sent the message and put his phone away. Nearby, a family played in the waves. Father, mother, 2 children laughing and splashing. Normal life, peaceful life, the kind of life Alex had thought he had built with Sophia. He had been wrong about her. He had missed the warning signs. He had let down his guard. But he had also adapted when the threat arose. He had protected Lucy. He had ensured justice. The skills never disappear. They merely lie dormant until needed. Alex walked along the beach as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Tomorrow, he would start looking for new opportunities, perhaps security consulting, perhaps teaching self-defense, perhaps something entirely different. But tonight, he was just Alexander Miller, a man who had survived betrayal, protected his family, and ensured predators faced consequences. The ghost could rest now. The mission was complete.